Following total atomic annihilation, the rebuilding of this great nation of ours may fall to you. That's why we here at Vault Boys WV will take you on an oral tour of the beautiful state of West Virginia. There's no other place to be better prepared for the impending fallout. Now we go live to our team of experts.
Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of Vault Boys WV. If you didn't know, this is a weekly podcast bridging the gap between Fallout 76 and West Virginia through history, culture, and personal experiences. Some of it has references, and the rest is just our local take. I'm your resident Appalachian scribe, Dave Chaffins, and joining me is Mr. Tourism himself, Austin O'Connor. How you doing, Austin?
I'm fantastic. How are you, David?
I'm doing pretty well. I recorded that probably 3 different times.
Hey, we got it right finally.
And I used a weird announcer voice.
You just gotta test some stuff out sometimes to really see how you're feeling.
I see how I'm feeling. Well, I felt like I was at the local minor league baseball park, ready
Pinot
to
chair, Pinot chair,
strike out. How's your week going, man?
It's going great, man. It's same old. Getting into the rhythm of everything finally at work.
Yeah,
learning how to do stuff and. So it's been, it doesn't feel like it's only Tuesday to me, but I don't know, anything exciting going on? No, dental crazy
issues. No
issue. Okay.
I go back in August for my, second
no numbness.
No, it's all good. I can eat chips again, which is a thing. So I had.
Did they have you not eating them for a while?
Well, they said that I could eat whatever I want, but I couldn't eat these particular chips. Just because of pain and how it reacts with the resin feeling or whatever.
Depends on the chips, but it might be worth it. The pain.
I had a pita chip with hummus just 2 or 3 days after that, and it was pretty good. But this week is very exciting because my wife talks about one thing at least every 2 weeks, and that is the lavender ice cream from Ellen's Ice Cream Shop on Capitol Street. Now, the last time that Ellen's had lavender ice cream was at last year's Art Walk, part of Festival downtown. Mm-hmm. And we went there, and it just happened to be their flavor of the month. We went in there, she got it, and she was in love. And she's researched ways to making it, but hasn't figured out the correct.
What is lavender ice cream?
So lavender ice cream is like vanilla ice cream that tastes like lavender. Have you ever tasted lavender or smelled lavender?
I have not.
You've smelled lavender before. It's probably been in a fabric softener.
I'm uncultured swine.
I'll have to give you a little bite after this. Okay. Well, actually, I'm going to have to discuss that with my wife.
I don't want to take from her stash. Yeah, has she bought
I went in there and I was originally just going to get a quart of it, mm-hmm. and so they can't. So
you can buy from Ellen's a big amount.
It was the biggest they can do is a quart, and so that's about maybe it's like a little bit bigger than a Ben and Jerry's cup, and so we went in there, and I was originally going to get a quart, and I got a text message while I was in line that was like, "Did you get a small one as well?" I was like, well, it looks like I'm going to get the small one too. Gotta get more. She made the quart, and it's like, I'm the only one in line. I'm like, listen, you need to get another of the small ones for me. It would save me a lot of time just by getting that. So
I think I need to make my way to Ellen's at some point this week and try to.
You need to get on that. They have really good. I really like. It's a little expensive, but it's really worth it.
I got, it was last month, I think. I got some cookie dough ice cream there. It was really good. It was very,
what did you get on top? Was it just cookie dough, or did you get any whipped cream?
I think I got some sprinkles on it too, or something like that. There was some sort of topping. It was colorful.
Playing that sprinkles game. I like playing the pecan and whipped cream game.
I'm not a big pecan guy, and I'm not a big whipped cream guy. I'm very simple. This is how
I'm a man of simple pleasure.
I'm a very simple man. I go typically if I go to Dairy Queen with people, I get vanilla ice cream. I like vanilla ice cream.
Well, yeah, people do. It's good.
And my friends will get some crazy hot fudge, this, that, and the other, and I'm just I'll just take a vanilla. I always like a bowl of vanilla if I'm at Dairy Queen. If I go to an authentic ice cream place, I'll get a cone. But at Dairy Queen, I've never had a good experience with a cone at Dairy Queen, so I always get a bowl. because it's way more enjoyable, and I'm very lazy, and I'm a very messy eater. So I'm like, man, I can't do all this.
I used to, when I was a kid, I really liked the cones at Dairy Queen, but now I really like the dipped cones where they dip it in that hard chocolate. That
probably keeps it cold longer too, doesn't it?
It keeps it cold longer, and then it's like more, you can enjoy it more because it's like you gotta deal, not only do you deal with the soft serve ice cream, you're dealing with this hard shell. And so if I'm getting a cone from Dairy Queen, that's what I'm going to get.
I'm salivating over here.
But I normally just get a Blizzard that has some sort of brownie or cookie dough within it. Or if I can get both in there, I try to do that. Or if I can get something absolutely insane or outrageous, that would also be good. My favorite one has been the promotional Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 Blizzard.
I saw that.
That has like, I think it's fudge brownie and chocolate chip cookie dough as well as extra fudge.
Listen, I've really, really been trying to not eat as terrible and to work out, but the devil is alive today. Because not only did I just eat Wendy's, now I'm really contemplating going to Dairy Queen after we film this. And I'm going to have to say a few prayers and
ladies and gentlemen,
Hail Marys.
The devil is alive in Charleston, West Virginia here and is preying on Austin's sensibilities.
Sheesh.
So this week, we're going to change up things a little bit. We've done 2 episodes of this podcast, plus an extra 2. One that it wasn't even worth putting out. It was good content, but none of the sound was correct. And we're going to do a rehash of that episode.
Some mistakes were made.
Next week. There were mistakes, and they were my mistakes, and I will take...
Well, we were so excited that we didn't do a sound check.
Right. And
we were just so excited and anxious to get going.
Right.
We didn't do a sound check. So.
And after, playing shows with my band, all these different, times through the months and years, we always do a sound check. And I'm the king of how everything sounds. And I'm, that, mean person that's telling them when this sounds off or this is in the treble or in the bass too much. And so
look at you.
Didn't listen to it, and it sucked. But we're going to come back now to that episode. We thought about doing it right after, but we thought we'd give it a little bit of break, make it fresh again.
Yeah.
And so now
I've forgotten most of the stuff.
I've forgotten it too.
So
it's been about a month, and now we're going to get back to doing that episode, which we'll discuss next week. But as we grow through the podcast, we're just going to be changing up some different stuff. And this week, we're changing around a few different things. We are going to cover the news from Fallout 76, and we are going to discuss a big topic. We're adding in a new section based on West Virginia music that we're going to cover. And the stuff that we talk about, video games, we're going to kind of keep more in the Fallout world. That way, it's a little more interesting for listeners, and we're not, talking about the stuff that we didn't play.
Right.
So with that, I'll take you into the news. From the Bethesda Community Administrator on their forums online. Hi, everyone. Popping in to say that it's been very fun seeing everyone's discussion on Fallout 76 and what your hopes and thoughts are about the game. I and members of the studio regularly lurk, and it's been great to read through your questions and feedback. With that in mind, we know you're anxious to learn more about the game, and more specifically about the beta. Starting in October, we'll be selecting people who have pre-ordered the game from a participating retailer to enter our beta. We'll start small and grow over time as we prepare for launch. Be sure you've read the FAQ for details about how to redeem your beta code and other important details. Beyond that, we know that you have numerous questions about the game. Things are still changing and being iterated on, so we cannot answer everything yet, but we're encouraging you to submit your questions. During the Fallout 76 panel at QuakeCon, we'll be answering some of your questions. If you're in Dallas, come join us. If you're not able to make it in person, you can check out all the fun via live stream airing on Mixer. Send questions our way by posting them here in the forums or any of the Fallout subreddits, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Thank you again for all your patience, discussion, feedback, and thoughts as we get closer to the launch of Fallout 76. So there's 2 main things from this blog post online. Number 1 is the beta is not coming until October.
God. So sad about that, man.
So what do you think? What is your feelings? What are your expectations for the beta, Austin?
Well, first off, I was really hoping it was going to be like August. I was really banking on that. It's kind of like giving me a reason to not leave my apartment when it's extremely hot outside.
It is very hot outside.
But it makes sense, I guess, realistically. They don't want it to be too early. I just hope that, I mean, I'm sure they've been playing it themselves quite a bit, so I'm sure they know of any glaring problems with it right now. I really hope that I know that they're going to do Xbox first, and kind of as they go on, they'll release it, PS4, PC, other stuff. I just hope that they let everyone that has a code try it, because for some reason I'm like reading into some of the things they said, and it sounded kind of strange, like almost like it wasn't going to be everyone getting a code. I don't know if that's, I don't typically do betas, to be honest, so I'm not overly familiar with betas, but hopefully, I just hope that it's like, I hope they give us enough time to actually be able to like experiment with the game, because that's really close to release, so I'm not sure how long it's going to be, you know what I mean? So I'm just hoping that we have plenty of time to actually give feedback and figure out what really, really works and what they need to maybe adjust a little bit, because it's like a 1 month turnaround, I guess, if that.
It's a month and a half, depending on when they start the beta. I would imagine, and this is entirely speculation, that it's going to be early October, because late October there's a game coming out called Red Dead Redemption, and
really,
and
never heard of that.
That's going to be a busy time for a lot of people, especially with the sales numbers that their previous title has had, where it's like one of the highest grossing games in all time.
Well, it's a really crazy time of year, because I feel like there's sometimes when I am really not interested in games that are coming out, and I don't really bother. But I mean, you've got Spider-Man in September?
Spider-Man September.
Red Dead October.
Red Dead in October.
Fallout November.
Fallout November.
And then I'm sure there's going to be something else in there that I'm not thinking of.
Super Smash Brothers is in December.
With other platforms, there's plenty.
Yeah, there's another Assassin's Creed game. I really like those. It's in October.
I think that they are probably looking at these dates.
Yeah,
like, all right, we need to kind of fit this in.
That's what all video game companies do.
Yeah, we've got this kind of opening right here. Let's just pop this bad boy out. That's kind of why I was looking at like August. I was like, all right, maybe they'll pop this out real quick before all of these games hit.
I thought, and it depended. To me, it depends on what we expected from a beta, as opposed to what the beta was actually going to be. And so what I think a lot of people had their expectation on was that they were going to be able to play the beta and then give a lot of feedback about the game's major mechanics. And I understand how people can think that, especially in a day of early access games. And like PUBG has been early access for years and years, and that's its whole development cycle.
Even
its own
Fortnite
thing.
still says like early access or beta. Like, it's still doing the same thing. So
there's
it's constantly updating.
Right. And so I think people were expecting to be able to change more of what the game is. I don't really. So my personal opinion is for example, I really like Nintendo as a brand, and they have a very Japanese mentality when it comes to making games of, we are making the games, we are going to decide the content of these games, and we're making them how we want to in ways that we know that you'll like, but if you don't like it, that's just a part of how it is.
Yeah.
And that works great. So I love Splatoon and Mario and different stuff, and it's like they don't involve the community in any of that, and it turns out great and fantastic. So I think that now, like with the timing of everything, it's being seen more as, and within the community, within the company, they probably already knew this, but within the community, more as a time that they're going to be able to just tweak things if they do in early October, and to test their servers, because even though the parent company has online games and everything, you want to test everything out to make sure you're not going to go overboard. I've been a part of a few different betas. So like the timelines on betas, Destiny 2's was very similar to their timeline, where it was only a month and a half, 2 months, and the game was released after their beta. And so
how long did you have to actually sit down and play the beta?
Oh, well, I mean, it was released on a weekend.
That's good.
And maybe I played 2 hours of it. It was just the first mission, and I don't even think it was just the first mission. Yeah, it wasn't even a full area. In the original Destiny beta, it was like 5 missions in a full area, and then the game was only 20 missions.
So like, yeah, you got through
it was like a quarter of the game in the beta.
Yeah.
But it's and Star Wars Battlefront was the same way, except they had a whole different issue with loot boxes in their development cycle. So this beta, I think, is just meant to test the servers and really tweak it out. They've made the game that they want to make, and they know that they think that people are going to be receptive of it, which gives me hope, because I like everything that Bethesda has done in the past 3 or 4 years. I would be considered a fanboy, so do not take any reviews that I have to heart. Also, on any game, right out of the gate, I am super positive on it for a good week. This includes movies. I thought Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice was a fantastic movie for a good week after I saw it, until I thought about it some more.
And then it came crashing down.
Right. So I'm a very positive person, and that's the way I am in life, and I like to lift people up and give some positivity. So
to be fair, Batman versus Superman was only terrible for the first half. It got decent at the end. So, like, it left you on a high note that was good enough that I can see why you thought it was good.
See, I don't know. It was a whole thing.
It was still a very mediocre movie.
Anyway, so with the beta and everything, personally, I don't really care. Like, I know that I'm going to play this game, clearly, because we've made this podcast about it. We're
actually just not even gonna play the game.
Right,
we don't care. We're just doing this.
We're gonna play the game. Obviously, as we go and play the game, we're gonna have some concerns, and this is more of an interest podcast into Fallout 76 and West Virginia. You're not gonna get these really super high level reviews of different stuff, because who cares what 2 guys that work day jobs think about X or Y.
We just love our state.
We just love our state.
It's going to be an interesting kind of coming together of 2 of our favorite things.
The thing outside of the beta that interests me is that they're doing this Q&A panel at QuakeCon. And I wonder if they will reveal any new media to generate questions.
I feel like they've got something to say. There's a lot of some people are very happy with the marketing so far for it. Some people are unhappy and are confused about what the game actually is. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they try a different approach at it when they come into QuakeCon and have some new trailer or something that's like a gameplay demo of like, here's Jack. He's going to go run down to the town and go fight the super mutants, and then go back and build his base and get his supplies and build a new thing. Oh no, somebody's attacked his base. Like, see some like that day in the life kind of gameplay. I think that if we're going to get that, it's going to be there. So that way we kind of you can see it being played and kind of get a better understanding of what's going on. Because I guess really all the clips we've had so far have just been more so,
there's been gameplay, but
quick montage cuts of everything. We haven't seen a full on. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna walk. Like you said, I mean, it's like a full scene. It's been more like cut, all across the with the music playing in the back. So we haven't really gotten that full immersive experience to view yet. Right. So I think that would be cool to see them do. I think that would make people maybe understand what they're doing a little more.
I would imagine too, and I would imagine that it would help people make up their minds as to what exactly the game is and if it's for them. For me, I already know. It's very easy. All you had to do is say Fallout and then say West Virginia, and I am super in.
You're in.
But for other people, it may be.
I mean, my friend, one of my friends, Darian, he, I guess, has not really been a huge fan of Fallout, But I know he told me that he's definitely going to get this one because of West Virginia. So
yeah, there's a bunch of people that are in that camp that have heard of it, have seen, maybe played 3.
Yeah, maybe didn't like it that much.
I know a lot of people that are like, okay, I just got a PlayStation 4 to play Fortnite with my nephew, so
yeah.
And maybe I went to WVU, so maybe I want to play this Fallout game.
It's bringing a lot of people. I mean, even the ladies I work with at the tourism office, so none of them, as far as I know, play video games. And I have a few friends from Huntington that are girls that have told me the same thing. They're like, yeah, I've never really gotten into it, but I really want to check this game out. Like, they're excited about it, even though they don't have a history of playing video games. So I think that that's going to be really, really neat to see people that really have never had any affiliation with video games at all, much less, like specifically Fallout, get into this world. And like this, it's going to be cool to see.
It is. It'll be interesting to see people who don't normally play games try it out and play. I know my wife likes very few games, but the one game she likes is Stardew Valley. And so if it's anything like that, she will be highly interested.
Stardew Valley.
Stardew Valley. All right, Austin, let's go ahead and talk about what we've been playing in Fallout this week. You been playing much anything in Fallout this week?
So last week I told you I was working with 3 Dog.
You working with the 3?
Wow, yeah. So I was working on that. I got really impatient, and I remembered that I had all the DLC, and I was like, I'm gonna go do Mothership Zeta. I was like, I'm just gonna go do this. And did that, and I'm working on Operation Anchorage. That's what it's called right now.
Yeah,
it's been so long since I ran through this stuff.
Right.
And I'm really just trying to get all of the like bonus like weapons and this and that. But getting to these locations when you have like virtually no weapons is nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it reminded me of Call of Duty when I played it. I didn't care for Operation Anchorage as much as other portions,
because it is more of a shooter. Like, you get more into
and I think
this.
that's what they were going for.
Yeah, give you a different feel.
Right.
But just getting, like, when you get above DC and you're, like, very early in the game, and then when you make your way all the way up to the very north part of the map for, like, the pit, and, like, you're just in the middle of all of this crap for Operation Anchorage. And it's like, when you've got like a 10mm pistol and a baseball bat, very nerve-wracking experience getting through all of this stuff. So I made it. I died a couple of times because I didn't really have much of anything, because apparently I'm terrible at Fallout now. I used to like roll around with like 150 stim packs at any given time, but now it's like I've got like 3 and a pistol and a baseball bat. So I'm not really making too much noise right now, but just wait. I'm going to glow up. I'm going to end up.
You're going to get it. Yeah.
I'm going to come back with the, I always loved the suit that when you crouched, you were invisible.
Oh yeah. The stealth suit.
Oh, I loved that.
I hope that there's something like that. It's like in my heart of hearts, I hope that there's
something like that. Or in terms of Fallout 76, I know that they talked about how everyone's mad about, oh, you can see the other players on the map. I guess if you crouch, you disappear from people.
I think.
I don't know how validated that is, but I thought I heard one of the Bethesda people actually saying that. Or at least maybe that they were considering that possibly.
Right.
So I think that would be a good idea, just to maybe give people the best of both worlds there.
Yeah.
But
So this week, I haven't played any Fallout 4. I played zero zilch. So that'll deduct 10 points from my Hogwarts house. But I have played some Fallout Shelter, checking in on the dog family, as you remember. 3 Dog had all of his children, and he sends them out, and we say who let the dogs out whenever they get sent out. So, fun fact is that I got one of those lunch boxes from doing like a daily mission, I don't know, time mission, whatever. And I got Alistar Tenpenny as a vault dweller. And so now I'm breeding the Tenpenny family.
Yeah.
And so then it's going to be like the 2 families will be the 10 pennies and the dogs. And it's like eventually that's all it's going to be is, all these. I'm going to kick out everybody who's not a 10 penny or a dog. And then it's going to be like, a house divided, like a 2-party system within my vault.
Hatfield McCoys of the new world.
Right. Yes. And
Yeah.
they're all going to live there together. And, I wish there was more, I guess, sim-like elements to that.
Yeah.
Where it's like you can make them hate each other or something. That's what I would do. That's my suggestion for future updates.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's have some relationships. All right. So let's go over and get into our big topic.
Let's do it.
Austin, our big topic this week is going to be a little more convoluted. This week, I'm going to tell a story involving secret detectives, union miners, and armed conflict in the southern part of the state.
Sounds juicy.
It is quite the juicy tale that I'm about to read for you here. And I'm going to separate it into 3 different parts. We're going to talk about those different parts as we go throughout the podcast. So let me start you off with a man named William Baldwin. William Baldwin was born in 1860 and had a passion for reading. His favorite novels were detective novels that uncovered the secrets and mysteries within his own imagination. While Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes didn't break out until the 1880s, Baldwin read pulp stories such as The Notting Hill Mystery and The Leavenworth Case, and Forrester and Hayward's The Female Detective. As a young adult, Baldwin started as a junior detective at the Eureka Detective Agency here in Charleston, West Virginia in 1884. After 6 years of working cases that have now been lost to time, he quit and moved to Roanoke, Virginia to start his own agency called Baldwin's Railroad Detectives, or as I'll call them, BRD. In a very short amount of time, the BRD took over all detective work in the coal fields of Appalachia, pushing out his former employers at Eureka. He partnered with his brother-in-law, William Jinks, who was the general manager at Norfolk and Western Railway Company. The work originally consisted of keeping order on trains, preventing or investigating thefts, and controlling the railroad's labor force. He had secured himself as the area's leading security agency, but did little traditional detective work. Baldwin's work and allegiance relied more on pleasing corporations and making money rather than upholding justice. What was once a young, bright-eyed, heroic detective morphed into a man of questionable moral character. In 1898, Baldwin was acquitted of murder charges in Petersburg, Virginia, after shooting and killing a black man during an arrest. At the trial, he openly claimed to have fired on 14 men in his capacity as detective on behalf of Norfolk and Western. Baldwin was also involved in 2 notorious episodes of racial violence in Roanoke, Virginia. Baldwin brought in Thomas Smith as a suspect of assault on a white farmer's wife. The city then asked Baldwin to handle security of the prisoner, and he refused. A riot broke out, and Smith was eventually lynched. In 1904, Baldwin intervened in the case of Henry Williams, an African-American man who had been arrested and accused of assaulting and nearly killing a white Roanoke woman. Baldwin extracted a confession from Williams, who later charged that Baldwin had got him drunk in his jail cell and that his confession was both coerced and false. A mob of Roanoke men threatened to lynch Williams after the news of the confession was made public, but he survived long enough to be legally hanged that next year. In 1900, Baldwin expanded his detective empire by brokering a partnership with Thomas L. Felts. The agency was renamed Baldwin Felts, stretching his detective contracting beyond Norfolk and Western into Ohio, Texas, Louisiana, Colorado, and the Carolinas. Baldwin spent time in Europe on behalf of the National Bureau of Identification, studying the emerging science of fingerprinting, while Felts' brother Albert designed an armored railroad car mounted with 2 machine guns that was called the Death Special. The train was later used to destroy striking workers' camps by firing on the workers and their families. Baldwin Felts was more than a run-of-the-mill detective agency. It was a domestic private military company headquartered in the small town of Bluefield, West Virginia.
It just seems what was it called? The death. What was
The Death Special.
The Death Special. That's just like over the
sounds
top.
like-
That's just people with too much money, not knowing what to do with it. They're like, I'm just gonna put this thing on a rail here, and it's just like a death machine, and we're just gonna rain down hellfire on anyone that disagrees with us.
It sounds like a 1960s Sean Connery Bond villain's death machine.
Like no one like in terms of authorities that are like higher up are like, hey guys, you can't do that. Like maybe we're not gonna put a death machine on the rails and just let you roll through towns just mowing people down. Like, can you imagine? Like I wish that Twitter was around for that. Like the way that Twitter is now, it blows up when stuff happens.
Right.
Like imagine that. Like they like go and like mow
some
a whole
NPR
town
reporter.
down.
Yeah.
And it, like people would still somehow make a joke about it though, because that's how Twitter is. It's always a joke, that's why I love Twitter, and I can't believe it's still free. But like for that right there, I wish that people would there would be so many memes about that. Like, but going back to like I guess near the beginning of that with Baldwin and how he had kind of built his way up, and then it was sort of like he started out so like good and true with his profession, and then just devolved. And like I just picture him like the classic scene in a movie, like he's in the shower and he's got like one hand up on the wall and his head's down in the water. He's like, what have I become?
Right.
Like he like has just become the villain all of a sudden, and just like popping pain pills all the time, like out of his mind. Like he really ended up turning into a dark dude.
It's like in
you hate to see it.
In The Dark Knight, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yeah, well, when you start making the death special, I think you kind of hit.
Your buddy's friend.
You've hit full heel at that point. If you've got something called the death special, like there had to be a lot of thinking involved in that. Like they had the blueprints up on the wall. Like, all right, boys, this is what we're doing next. We got 2 Gatling guns on this son of a bitch.
Right.
We're going to roll through and just mow these people down. Like, they're just like, pop, 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 just rolling through. So that's just, I don't know, man.
It seems like an evil genius machine. Like, there's this guy in this basement. And it was first used, I read that it was first used in, like, Colorado or something like that. On a minor strike up there. But
to be fair, if I'm a miner and I see this rolling through,
How is that legal?
I'm not on strike anymore. I'm running up the mountain. I'm gone.
I'm gone. Yeah.
You will not see me again.
It's crazy.
As soon as I hear that there is something called a death machine, I'm gone.
The death special.
Or the death special.
Yeah.
I'm not sticking around to find out how like real this thing is. So you guys can have fun with that. Like I'm out.
And it's like it seemed like that. He started as this like guy obsessed with like these. I'm gonna call him Sherlock Holmes-esque characters, and he's like, I'm gonna be like this Dick Tracy like dude, and figure out all these crimes and do all this stuff. And there's no information, strangely, on the Eureka Detective Agency. Mm-hmm. It's literally an agency lost to time. And if I were a local band, I would change my name to the Eureka Detective Agency and wear like
we should do that. We should start a band. And
right, we should do that, and that'd be the name. And sing like we did like super like paranormal cases or what have you. But yeah, the Baldwin dude, he got a little weird, and then wasn't necessarily
weird.
Wasn't necessarily a man of the law, and got super racist, and
it's like
was told by the government to do stuff, and then decided he wasn't going to do the things that the government told him to do.
Dude, he needed friends he
got a friend
that would call him on his BS and be like, hey, maybe don't be a racist piece of trash. Or, hey, maybe don't create something called the death special. Maybe let's just like go in here and try to work this out as adults rather than just go in like a James Bond villain. Like, not that James Bond was around back then, but
think more in terms of Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
And less whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
But with Baldwin Felts, they were so big, and everybody, a bunch of people worked for them, and it wasn't just in Virginia, West Virginia; it was all over. And
you still hear a lot about them in Bluefield. Like that's a big historical.
It is a big piece, and in this 3-part series that I'm doing on this particular podcast, I'm talking about my relatives. So my great grandfather was a Baldwin Felts detective.
Really?
Yep, and he was what do you? I think my mother said he was like a sharpshooter or something. He was good with a pistol.
Okay.
But he was, when he started out, was a Baldwin Felts detective, and then quit that, and then ended up becoming sheriff of Wise County, Tazewell County, sheriff of some county in Virginia. But that's what he started as, was this Baldwin Felts railroad detective. And there's
sweet.
And the history of everything and how it's still a little bit contested of who said what, but it's very clear to me that this William Baldwin fellow was not the best judge of character when it comes to stuff.
Yeah. Kind of sucked.
Yeah, a little bit, but
slightly.
Well, it seems like I know that the story from my grandfather is that when he was sheriff, a guy shot him, and then shot him I think in the chest. And I may be butchering the story, and my mother can correct me on this later on.
Yeah.
And then when at his funeral, the guy that shot him was felt bad about it for years, and was still his friend. And came to his funeral, and he had died. I forgot what he had died of. It may have been something related to the gunshot wound. It was years and years later.
Okay, so he didn't. I thought
no,
so. He didn't just die
of
from
the gunshot wound.
Okay.
No, it was years and years later, and it was at his funeral, and the dude like sobbed the whole time, even though it had been years and years and years. So,
of all the places to get shot, I would say the chest is up there as one of my places I don't want to get shot though.
Yeah,
because there's a lot going on.
There's
right
a lot.
there.
There's a.
I want to get like just grazed
frame
in the arm or something.
Yeah.
Maybe like my just like my ankle. I don't know. I'm trying not to take it direct.
Ankle, they got all those tendons down there, man. I don't know about that.
Maybe just like the side. Just a little graze.
Just like shoot like a nice little line through my hair, and that can grow back.
Yeah, I'm extra though. I'd be like milking the fact that I got shot. I'd have like a little like cut on my arm.
World Cup soccer player rolling around on the ground.
Yeah, that would be me. Full admittance of that.
So there's more to this story.
Let's delve deeper.
So let's dive a little deeper here. So I'm going to go back to this Albert Felts character that invented the death special, as we were just talking about. So these detectives do different cases and go out to different areas and are essentially these strike breakers that work for these companies and discipline. I'm not even sure if that's the right word. Union workers. Really
basically made them realize, hey, you guys need to do
bullied them for all intents and purposes.
With things called the death special.
So Albert Felts was working in Matewan, West Virginia. He was tasked with better securing the property and land owned by the Stone Mountain Coal Company in Matewan, West Virginia. He tried to bribe the local mayor Testerman with $500 in order to receive his blessing to mount machine guns on top of the company's property permanently. The mayor refused, and in retaliation, Albert called his brother Lee and a band of 11 other agents to come and evict families from their homes built on company property. He threw the families and their possessions out into the pouring rain while residents and union-based miners were watching. The gang left for the train ride back to headquarters, but were stopped by local police chief Sid Hatfield. Sid had deputized local miners and had called in an arrest warrant for Albert. Albert had, in turn, acquired an arrest warrant for Sid. A crowd gathered around to dispute the claims between the two. Mayor Testerman arrived to examine the warrants and found the warrant for Sid's arrest to be a fabrication. Before he could notify the crowd of his assessment, Sid and Albert had exchanged shots. The rest of the deputized miners fired on Felts' squad, who were less than prepared. Only 5 of the 12 Baldwin Felts detectives were able to escape the town of Matewan. 3 other deaths occurred in Matewan that night, including the death of Mayor Testerman, whose widow remarried 2 weeks after his death to Sid Hatfield. The story of Smilin' Sid grew and made him out to be something akin to a folk hero and gunslinger a la Wyatt Earp. After being acquitted of his previous murder charges, Sid traveled to McDowell County to face charges for dynamiting a coal tipple. As he was walking up the courthouse stairs, he was assassinated by a group of Baldwin Felts agents on direct orders from Thomas Felts and William Baldwin. This set the stage for the world's largest labor uprising in United States history. Excuse me, that's the largest labor uprising in United States history, as well as one of the most well-armed uprisings since the Civil War.
Listen, I've been on those courthouse steps in Welch. They are very steep. There's a lot of them. They could have at least had the courtesy to just do it at the bottom of the steps. Don't make the man climb the steps to his death. Like either like let him like take a break real quick. Like don't. I mean, man, those are a lot of stairs. I'd have been mad if I was him, but he also died, so I don't know. But those stairs, man, there's a lot of them. It's kind of like straight up a hill.
So this Sid character essentially became a folk hero to a lot of the Union miners in the area. And I learned that he actually starred in his own film that the United Mine Workers Association created called Smilin' Sid, in which it depicted this battle in a particular light and was more of like a rising up of union workers against the companies. The details of the battle, as I learned, and originally had written the story in one way, but found that it was told a different way by other people, they're not necessarily cohesive. And so a lot of people claim to know exactly what happened, and their stories differ from other people who've claimed to know exactly what happened. The story in West Virginia is that what is his name? Albert Phelps drew his gun, and then Sid drew his gun and shot him. So Albert drew the gun first, and I believe
like Han Solo.
And I believe shot Mayor Testerman. That is contested due to his wife.
Yeah,
that ended up remarrying Sid Hatfield just 2 weeks after Mayor Testerman's death.
Something fishy going on there.
And it was actually, I think, Thomas Phelps who sued on behalf of the company that Albert Phelps murdered Mayor Testerman and said it was Sid Hatfield because of his marriage. But the case was thrown out.
Not enough evidence, I guess.
Not well, it's different sides of the story, and it was he said, she said throughout the whole thing.
Kind of crazy how there's how many Hatfields are kind of involved in West Virginia history, heritage, lore, whatever.
Right. So just a little bit of background on a few things. Smilin' Sid, the reason they called him Smilin' Sid, and if you Google a picture of him, you can see this as well, is he had a bunch of gold fillings on his front teeth, and you could see them all, and so he had this like real white and gold smile. Well, I don't know about white, but maybe like yellow and gold smile.
Yeah,
as he would go around. And the other detail is that a witness to all of this was Ance Hatfield, also known as Devil Ance Hatfield, who was the patriarch of the Hatfield family, testified in front of the grand jury the events that happened at this particular shootout. And so this shootout was essentially the East Coast version of the shootout at OK Corral that Wyatt Earp famously participated in with Doc Holliday, not the previous head coach of the Marshall football team.
Current head coach.
Oh, is he still good?
He's still there.
I've met his mother at a church gathering once.
Old Doc.
Yeah. So it was a big deal for everybody as they went through and heard about this event, and it became this widespread phenomenon that people rallied behind for years and years over this. This is our rising up against, as union workers are rising up against the men. We have to rise up in order to be fairly represented. And in fact, there was a movie made about it, and I think it was in 2000, sometime in the 2000s, that has...
Talking about Mate One?
I'm talking about Mate
That
One.
was in the 80s.
Was that in the 80s?
Yep.
It aged well.
I think it had Chris Cooper in it. It's
It's
actually
got Chris Cooper, yeah.
filmed in the town of Thurman, West Virginia.
There you go. You know about it. I've watched it. It's been several years, and I rewatched a clip of the shootout this week.
I've never watched it through.
Oh, I've watched it through. That was part of my studies, like the intro to Appalachia course that I took.
It's a good movie.
It was part of that, and it was a good movie, and I liked it a lot. And and some of the details are changed for this and that. That also showcases in that film. I believe that there is a scene where they have the death special coming down, shooting through tents, and I think that there was one case where they had went and observed the remains of the train, like the remnants of what it had shot up, and they were like somewhere they counted 150 bullet holes and like tents and stuff.
Oh,
The nasty stuff, but
just extra, man. Too much.
so the Sid Hatfield guy got very, very popular, and then was killed, essentially. He had a accomplice that was with him, and he was also killed in the courthouse steps, and I believe that their wives were with them when they were killed as well.
He had to know that there was a target on his back, though. I feel like as much as he was doing, so it's just scary. They came out, they had the sticky with the icky ready for him on that, so...
Well, he was a wild man. I mean, he was a rabble rouser, as they would call him, and went in and then blew up this gigantic piece of machinery that would almost be considered a building in the sense, and he was being tried for that. So this I don't think this guy particularly cared.
He was just living his life.
He was. And in the series of part 2 of people that I'm related to, I will also call out Sid Hatfield as somebody that I'm related to by the marriage of Devil Anse Hatfield to Levice Hatfield, whose maiden name was Chafin.
It's a small world.
It is a very small world, and we are about to see even more things in part 3, which I will get to right now. After Sid's death, unionized miners began mustering forces near Marmot, West Virginia. And it's a weird... People around here call it Marmot, and I would call it Marmet.
Yeah, I always used to say Marmet.
And my wife's dad likes to call it Marmay. Marmay, very fancy.
Marmay.
So this was... they were mustering forces near Marmot, West Virginia, which is near Charleston, West Virginia. They were set to march to Mingo County by Bill Blizzard to confront the coal companies and free the Union men imprisoned in the area. Many of these coal companies, many of these men were World War I veterans and still owned military-issue weapons and munitions. They commandeered their own freight train and renamed it the Blue Steel Special in order to speed up their advancement to Mingo. Meanwhile, Logan County's anti-union sheriff, Don Chafin, set up defenses on a site called Blair Mountain. He hired Baldwin Felt's detectives, as well as contacted the United States military to send in air support. President Warren Harding threatened to send a detachment of federal troops, as well as Martin MB-1 bombers. The miners caught word of this and met in Madison, West Virginia, to discuss the idea of going home. They resolved that it would be the best state of action. But Chafin was not going to be denied his opportunity to end the unions once and for all. He began attacking miners and their families in the town of Sharples, which then convinced the main force of Union miners to turn back and attack Chafin's forces. Chafin's men, while outnumbered, had the advantage of higher positions and better weaponry. Private planes were contracted to drop homemade as well as old World War I gases and explosive bombs. The battle lasted for 5 days until the National Guard intervened and convinced Bill Blizzard to send the miners back home. The death toll was near 100, but near 1,000 miners were arrested after the battle ended. Many miners hid weapons in trees and holes, knowing that authorities would confiscate them. Bill Blizzard was able to recover one undetonated bomb from the battlefield. He used it as surprise evidence at his trial for the government and corporate brutality that occurred at Blair Mountain, and he was acquitted. What started as young men fawning after their heroes led to a revenge story that mobilized an entire state into armed conflict. Today, the land is protected under the National Register of Historic Places, but Arch Coal and Massey Energy hold permits to blast and strip mine huge chunks of the upper slopes of Blair Mountain. In Fallout 76, it seems that the area has already begun being heavily mined and has turned into an ash heap. This could be due to the alternate timeline the universe takes after 1950. Still, the blood of vengeance baptized Blair Mountain.
You know how we have discussed in the past how West Virginia, people from West Virginia are very proud people.
Yes.
And how they're very determined and they kind of all stick together. I think that a lot of that comes from like this story and the way that these people banded together and they fought the man, you know, they fought against their own form of oppression that was going on at this point. And the term, I don't know, I'm sure you knew this, the term redneck originated from this. From
I didn't know that.
The strikes and the mine wars and everything, they would wear red bandanas around their neck in solidarity with each other, like to kind of show that they were together. And redneck, because they had the red bandana around their neck. So that's where that term actually originates, is from the strikes in Blair Mountain and West Virginia. So, I mean, a lot of West Virginians get called redneck anyway, so it's fitting. But, yeah, so.
Well, I think it's interesting that Baldwin Felts had, as we discussed, the death special. And then the Union guys are like, screw your death special. We're pirating our own train and calling it, what was it? The Blue Steel Special or something like that? Wait, that's the Zoolander look.
Blue Steel.
No, it was the Blue Steel Special. That is the exact name of it. So these guys hop on pirate. I imagine these guys being like old school pirates and like hopping on their own train and be like, "We're coming to get you."
I picture it like developers in like Silicon Valley. Like one person does this, so they're like, "Oh, we got to top that." So then like they're trying to like make their own version of this,
right?
And then everyone's just gonna die though. So that's the difference. But I don't know.
Well, they're actually, in comparison to the I think it was like 40,000 people total that fought, and only 100 died. That's pretty good. There were a bunch of people.
That's a surprising number. Like you would have expected a lot more.
There were a bunch of people that were injured. But, and nobody
a lot of
really.
them are just like stabbing each other with forks, probably. Like not even really in it, but.
Well, it's funny because a lot of the weapons and stuff that they like got rid of and like hidden tree trunks, you can go out to that site, and if you look around, you'll still be able to find stuff that they've hidden. Like they just hid it beneath a rock or.
What's kind of scary about that is, if people are up like hiking or doing this or that, you never know. Like you might stumble upon something that
like
could
World War
hurt
I
you.
era machine guns.
It's very similar to
grenades
in the Canaan, or not Canaan Valley, Seneca Rocks.
Yeah,
they did all the World War II training up there and had like bombs and stuff. And they tell you like, do not go off the trail because there could still be undetonated, World War II era bombs or grenades, all sorts of stuff. So it's kind of scary. Like you don't know what you're going to stumble upon. Something could actually be a little dangerous.
Yeah,
it's pretty neat.
I think that Blair Mountain is one of the most important West Virginia stories.
Oh yeah,
like
just in terms of how proud we are of our heritage and the way that we fight. I think.
People are so committed to the West Virginia ideals and this movement that started with unions, especially United Mine Workers Association, that was, surprisingly, if you look at today's political climate, back then was very openly socialist and was more about protecting the working man, which we have and still have a ton of in West Virginia. That's a different political climate here now, obviously, but back then you were either a union man or you were a piece of trash. And quite literally, and in the street, they would tell you. And still strikes happen with workers here, and it gets still pretty heated because of that deep love that people have. The crazy thing to me is that this sheriff dude just hated the unions so much. It's like, he was the sheriff of Logan County. Why did this guy hate all the unions so much? It's like literally everyone in West Virginia. And it's like the last sheriff that we had in the story loved the unions. Deputized a bunch of union miners to go be in a hit job.
It's like one or the other at this point.
And in the third and final round of people I'm related to, while it is not confirmed and I have not traced it back all the way, there are a limited number of Chafin originating from the southern part of West Virginia, and I would imagine that by some
there's got to be some sort of relation.
Probably related to him. So it seems like on all sides of this battle, I'm the culmination of that genetic.
You can't pick a side.
DNA. No, I have to be there, but I have to I can't pick a side. I personally and politically would pick a side now.
but at the time, genetically, it's like,
right,
man, you're all over the place.
And it's crazy to me that while these people are being bombed by the United States government. The United States government has taken in bombers, which is the first and only time that the American government has ever bombed its own citizens on its own soil, which is absolutely crazy to me that they even did something like that.
Again, another opportunity that I think it would have been really cool for Twitter to have been around at this point. The world would have gone crazy.
Those vines would have been insane. But these guys, as the bombs were dropping, were collecting undetonated bombs. And so we're going out and being like, oh, that gas bomb didn't detonate.
Yeah.
Let me go get that because I can use that for evidence later.
Yeah,
These
totally
guys are that
safe.
smart
Totally
to go out
safe.
there and be like in the moment, being like, oh, wait. I need to make sure I have evidence of this.
Yeah.
It's like the equivalent of bringing your phone every time you get pulled over and taking it out.
Like you have it ready
I'm
to
going to
go.
get evidence of this. By God, I'm going to have evidence of what goes on here. These guys were smart enough to do that and then hide it from everyone. And then while this court case was going on to charge the pseudo leader of the group, pull out. Be like,
They got the receipts. They're like, all right, we've got this, we've got this one that didn't detonate. This one did detonate. Ronnie lost his left leg, but we did recover the rest of the bomb. So we got this one to show. Like, I mean, they did their homework. They brought that, they had it ready to go. So
it's no wonder the dude was acquitted, especially just by like literally dropping the bomb on the courtroom. But
yeah.
with all of that, and with the unions and everything, when the Great Depression happened, it all kind of fell apart, and a lot of especially after this, a lot of local unions lost membership. But then in the 1950s, right after World War II, unions came back and had higher membership than before, and kind of established what they are today. As far as the percentage of miners that are union and in the state of West Virginia and really around the United States, is there's still very powerful unions for a lot of different businesses that work and are specific to West Virginia. So
Yeah.
it's a really, really interesting piece of history. And with the spirit of the podcast, we're going to kind of go into new waters here and talk about West Virginia music history in particular. So in college, I took a whole semester class on bluegrass music. And it was my senior year, and I wish I would have done it sooner, because if it was not my last semester senior year, I would have cared a lot more.
Yes.
But it was still a very interesting class, and I feel bad that I would not show up to class often. But I still did all the work, and I think I got a B in that class, or B minus, which I was like super happy about, because I got on a dean's list with that. But I want to talk about West Virginia musicians. And each week here, and we're going to call this a limited segment, we're going to talk about one West Virginia musician. And this week, I want to start with probably the craziest, most outlandish West Virginia musician that has ever come about. And we're going to be talking about Hassel Adkins. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. Born in 1937 in Boone County, West Virginia's Hassel Adkins, nicknamed The Haze, as he was called, began his music career out of an improvised studio in 1950 in Madison, West Virginia. He primarily played rockabilly music as a one-man band, playing drums, guitar, and singing at the same time. His most famous songs include the tune She Said, in which he compared the woman of a one-night stand he had to a, quote, dying can of that commodity meat. His next song, No More Hot Dogs, was a song about, quote, decapitating a girlfriend and keeping her head as a wall mount, end quote. He would send a copy of each new album he's recorded in his home to the current sitting president. And in 1970, Richard Nixon wrote back in a letter saying, quote, I am very pleased by your thoughtfulness in bringing these particular selections to my attention. The 1980s punk scene brought about a resurgence of the Haze, and by the 90s, he'd rallied a loyal cult following and began touring. Adkins died of injuries sustained when a teenager intentionally ran him over with an ATV in 2005. Adkins is seen as the precursor to modern psychedelia music. Have you listened to any Slatkin?
I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't. But I think I'm going to have to listen to him now.
This guy was a character, if I've ever seen one.
I just want to know why the kid ran him over with an ATV.
Well, he seems like... And, I'm not calling him out, and this guy's family is still around. I'm not trying to call anybody out. Seems very similar to a good boy from Boone County as well, known as Jessica White.
Oh, the dancing outlaw?
Dancing outlaw himself. It seems like this character, while debatably more talented, has a very similar...
Equally as, wild and out there.
Very similar lifestyle choice that he made. I, for one, love the fact that he would send his albums to all the presidents. And then
that's a bold move.
He sent him the song about
it's a bold
decapitating his girlfriend. And Richard Nixon was like, I appreciate your thoughts on this subject. And I'm sure
that when he got the letter back, he was probably in absolute shock. Someone finally responded to him.
He framed it probably and hung it up. And it's to me, he made all this music and tried to go to Hollywood for a time in the 60s and then didn't make it there, came back and was just this local performer for years until in the 80s, this punk rock band was doing covers of his music. And then they had such a loyal following that they were like, yeah, you can come and help us out and cover with us. And then people started liking Hassel again. And then he started going on all this touring from music that he had written back in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah. Gosh.
And then he at that point, he'd been seen as this father of modern psychedelia. As he goes through the Beatles and the 13th floor elevators and different stuff, he was kind of a precursor to all of that. As far as his sound and what he was trying to do, I would encourage you to go on YouTube and listen to some live recordings and concerts. The concerts are really worth it.
You got to wonder, did these people actually hear him at the time? Bands like the Beatles, with their whole...
I'm not really sure if there's a lot of inspiration there, but I think he was definitely a pioneer of sorts. Just how Hendrix kind of was for the electric guitar, for this crazy psychedelic music. A lot of it started, and I think through people, word of mouth, different shows, he kind of influenced it a tad. Yeah. And as you go back and listen to his music, he was doing stuff that people nowadays are doing. Yeah. But back then, it was unheard of to hear him do this music.
Kind of makes me think about Back to the Future when Marty starts playing.
Yeah,
Chuck Berry.
Right, when he starts playing Chuck Berry.
And everybody's just looking at him silently.
What the heck?
He's like, your kids are going to love it. Mm-hmm. He was like, your grandkids are going to love it. I'll be playing for them in 30 years.
It is sad, and I will say as a final bit on my good friend Hassel here, who I encourage you to listen to on YouTube. I don't know if he's on Spotify or anything like that. He probably is. You can probably find some songs, but I've listened to some of the stuff on YouTube that I really like. Is my final fact that I'm very sad that he is now a part of the ATV death toll in West Virginia, as that is growing rare. You need to be very safe when you're riding the ATVs in West Virginia.
I feel like you're speaking directly at me right now, since I'll be on an ATV tomorrow.
Yes, you need to be very safe. I need you to do this podcast. All right,
next week we're doing it from the hospital.
Let's roll into our next section here. All right, so that's kind of the end of the podcast, but we want to, we had a little bit of a community portion last time, and we're going to roll it in kind of at the end here to kind of catch up on what we had going on. So we wanted to thank you guys for listening to our second episode as well as our first episode. You guys have been really great and given us some nice feedback. Make sure you tell your friends, post it. If you know anybody that really is excited about Fallout 76 and wants to learn more about West Virginia, that very specific thing, which I don't know how you communicate that with people, but I'm all about that communication. Tell them about the podcast, and I'm sure that they will at least like it a little bit.
I've been pleasantly surprised. A lot of my friends who may not be into Fallout, but like West Virginia or they just, want to support us. I want to thank them because they've also helped us spread it. And it's cool. I mean, I think that we have something for anybody. Especially if you just like West Virginia, you're gonna learn something.
I've got relatives and friends that don't play any video games that are listening to it just because they like the West Virginia history, and it's not. Yeah. It is super surface level West Virginia history. I would encourage you, if you really want to get in on Appalachia in general of current events, go listen to Inside Appalachia, which is a podcast done by the affiliate NPR station, and they do really great interest stories. My favorite one they did was following around 3 fresh out of high school or college guys that were looking for jobs in the coal industry and their story behind it. It was a really interesting portion that they had in that podcast recently, which I really enjoyed. So I'd encourage you, if you're interested in that, that's another gateway to get into Appalachia. We're going to be more covering your top-level history, your interesting stories, your essential West Virginia lore on the podcast.
Overall, thank you all for the support.
We really appreciate it. This week, as of course we are on iTunes, Google, Stitcher, TuneIn, and SoundCloud, as well as iTunes affiliate services. So I listen to it on an app called Pocket Cast, which I really like. And I paid a one-time fee, and I don't get any ads, and I get to download everything offline, which is what I do. That's what's in my earbuds at work. But with this episode, this is the first time that we are putting our stuff out on YouTube. So by the time you listen to this, we'll have videos of this episode, episode 2 and 3. Episode 2 and 1 on YouTube as well. There's no, when I say videos, there's no actual camera in here. There's going to be a little graphic that we roll, but you'll be able to listen to it on YouTube at least. And with it being on YouTube, some of the music that we had, I learned is copyrighted. And so I am retroactively going back and changing the intro song, which I learned was owned by Fox Productions. And they use it in a somewhat unknown show called Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Never heard of it.
And so I have changed that with music that I now hold a copyright to put out on the podcast on YouTube.
We're official now.
We're very official. And with that, I want to shout out Kyle Williams, who's a West Virginia native, on a whim, emailed in and wanted to design us a new logo and talk back and forth with me. And even though I felt like I was being a little bit too pushy with what exactly I wanted, he put out a really excellent logo design, and I've changed it on everything. It should be updating as we get to this podcast and you're listening to it in your little ear holes. We should have it out, ready to go. If not, it's at least on SoundCloud and all of our social media. Check it out.
Shout out to Kyle, man. That was awesome of him to do.
He was talking to me about the colors and about how he wanted that blue and gold for West Virginia, and then a lighter kind of Vault-Tec blue.
It's really crisp. He did a great job on it.
And it makes it so that you can see that 7 and 6 better, because a lot of people were messaging in and saying, "What's Vault Goys?"
Yeah,
because the 6 kind of looks like a G, but with the different coloring, it looks a little bit better. Also wanted to check in on the rapidly growing social media campaign, #That'sMySloth.
#That'sMySloth.
Right. I do have an update from that. It has not been very successful. I've gotten no contact from the National Association of Natural Resources, Academic Resources, some sort of resource.
We're going to get them.
We're going to
little by little. We're going to chisel away at this, and they're going to have no other choice.
They're going to have to bring. If you didn't know, this #That'sMySloth is a social media movement in which we are trying to bring the state fossil Megalonyx jeffersoni back to its rightful place at the West Virginia State History Museum off of Greenbrier Street.
A lot of times I stay awake at night thinking about how lonely it must be up there.
Does he have Tudor's Biscuit World?
Has it ever even had a Thundering Herd biscuit?
Does he know what a pepperoni roll is?
Does he even know what
These are the things we need to teach him. And it is within this campaign under #That'sMySloth to bring it about. Well, Austin, that's it for today. Don't forget to email us your questions at vaultboyswv@gmail.com. That's VAULTBOYSWV@gmail.com. Check us out on social media at VaultBoysWV. Also check us out on Google, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, anywhere you get your podcasts except for Spotify. We are not on Spotify yet, but we are now, starting this week, on YouTube. For now, the vault door is closing. Stay safe.
Crazy taxi. All right, I'm done. I gotta stop.
BD Joe.